Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's edition of Imperial as One's Belonging series, where we explore the lived experiences of individuals from the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. People who are willing to share their stories, to give us an insight into what it means to belong. And this week, I say it every week, but this week we have another really special guest. And this is Cherron Inko-Tariah. Um, and Cherron is a former civil servant, a consultant, a coach, and the author of an incredible book called The Incredible Power of Staff Networks. Now, I'm not going to steal Cherron's thunder because I'm going to ask Cherron to give us some insight into what it is that led to those books, but more so telling us about what's given her her sense of identity and sense of belonging. So Cherron, I want to just give you a big welcome and also to ask the first question, which is, can you tell me what it is that has given you your sense of identity, your sense of belonging as you were growing up?
Well, firstly, Wayne, thank you so much for inviting me. Cherron Inko-Tariah. So you
Yeah,
know, I
it's
know it's
sorry.
a bit of a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um, and Having an unusual name really makes you stand out.
yeah.
But no, to answer your question, so my family, both my mum and my dad, are from Barbados.
Mhm.
So, all right, Tiny Beer, John's in the host. So it was just wall to wall Barbados. Everything was a symbol of Barbados. They are very proud Bajans. And so when we were growing up, a lot of our references were, about the Caribbean, and
Mhm.
there's certain things that you do, certain foods that we eat, and all that kind of stuff. So,
Mhm.
we grew up knowing about Barbados, even though we had never been there.
Mhm.
Um, but then again, we were still growing up in London, and
Yeah,
we were growing up in East London at
yeah.
that. And with that comes a sense of a need to be quite streetwise. And sadly for us, there are people around the area that didn't want black people. They didn't think black people belonged, and so on. And we did have a couple of racist experiences. People putting certain leaflets through our door and stuff. And when West Ham were playing on a Saturday morning, or whenever they were playing, you just didn't
Mhm.
go out.
Mhm.
You didn't go out, and it was drilled into us. So we knew when West Ham were playing, all right, we're staying in, we're staying in. That's it. We're not going anywhere. You know, unless it was to the market. There's if anyone who knows where West Ham used to be in Upton Park, there's Queen's Market around there.
Yeah.
And if you needed anything, you get up at the crack of dawn, you go to the market, and you get back before the hot dog stalls and everything was out. You had to be in your house. So and that could be challenging at times, but we just thought that's just life.
Yeah.
It's just like children who grow up with in wartime. It's just life. You just get on with it.
Yeah.
Um, so on the one hand, I felt proud of my Caribbean heritage, but on the other hand, I was growing up as a Londoner,
Yeah.
and to be told that you don't belong here, go back where you came from. As a child, you're like, what are you talking about? Go back to where you came from. I come from East London. Where you want me to go?
Yeah.
So but my mum was very good, and just be proud of who you are. Don't get into trouble. Don't bring no policeman to my door, but stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's like a bit of contradiction there, mum. Because if I stand up for myself, I may have to bring police to your door. But, but yeah, she was trying to instill in us that don't let anyone make us feel lesser than who we are. So that kind of helped me with my sense of belonging.
That's brilliant. So your parents are kind of like within the Windrush generation. They came over looking for a better way of life or looking for more opportunities, and they're having their children here, and they're helping you to navigate a system and tell you, you know what, do your best. Yeah, drill into you, do your best, but you have to be streetwise at the same time.
Yeah, there was very much as such that. So yeah, my parents came over. They didn't come over on the Windrush,
Mhm.
but my mum, she's always saying, "I didn't come on no boat. I came on a plane." She's always saying that. I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So yes, she heard the call
Mhm.
when they went to recruit in Barbados, and she came over, being prepared to do anything just to you know, as you say, make some money and make a better life. Not
Hmm.
just for her children, but for the family back home too, because you know they
Right.
had this thing that they were sending money back as well. And you know, my mom's an incredible financier. I don't
Hmm.
know how she managed with the money that she had and four of us kids, but she made it work. She
Hmm.
made it work. And you know, we didn't need anything, we didn't want for anything. You
Hmm.
know, if I
Yeah.
switched on the light came on.
Yeah.
If I was hungry, there was food in the cupboard. There was no one knocking at our door saying that we have to be evicted. We
Yeah.
didn't have any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so um it was quite a great way of growing up actually, because I didn't know what I didn't need and I was quite happy with what I had.
Yeah.
So you know, in a way, I'm a lot of Windrush people do that, don't they? They know how to save and how no, put down £10 here, £15 over there, pay your bills, don't owe anybody any money, and you know, have your rainy day fund, all of those kind of principles. So you kind of grow up with that in your mind still.
Absolutely.
You know, yeah. So she was always about don't be robbing Peter to pay Paul and all this kind of stuff. We didn't know what she was talking about, but we just like okay. We had savings and we knew we had to put some money aside. But
That's
yeah,
right. So you knew to live within your means. Whatever you had, that was what you had, you know?
exactly. And
Yeah.
if you didn't have it, she didn't like hiring stuff. You know, people used to do things on hire purchase and or what we used to call they used to call the never never because you never ever pay it back.
Yeah.
So she didn't like any of that.
Yeah.
If you wanted something, you saved up and you bought it. The only thing she did do is the catalog
Okay.
because the catalog was the lifesaver. In case you needed something, you just didn't have the catalog was the just in you know just in case thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's mum did the catalog. Great Universal and Little Woods and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I did them. Did them. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
But
you put down, you'd see something and you'd say, all right, and I pay it back. And
that's
but
it.
you knew it was paid back. You
That's
know,
it. That's it. That's it.
that's brilliant. So so I can see from just from your expressions, from everything, that it was a really loving environment which your parents created for you and your siblings. Um, and they gave you warnings about the potential dangers which lay outside, especially in the regions which you were growing up in. What about then school life? Because you were then having to leave home, as it were, to go to school and stuff. What was school like for you? And did you get a sense of identity belonging from school?
I did. I should say that, you know, the first 7 years of my life, my parents were married and then they got divorced.
Okay.
So for the rest of the time, it was really my mum who was
Okay.
doing both roles. So that's why I'm giving her the props because she
Yeah.
really did, you know, do it. At school, so the thing is, my sister, brother, I have a twin brother
Yeah.
and an older sister, and all three of us growing up went to three different secondary schools. We all
Right.
went to the same primary schools, but we all went to three different secondary schools. And I think I got the best deal. Because I really enjoyed school,
Mhm.
and you know the kit for me the thing to school for school is you know I had to study hard and uh, yeah just study hard and do those things that I enjoyed. And the school I went to was like a convent school, but it wasn't like a private school. It was a normal school, but it was run by nuns. It was like an Ursuline school,
Mhm.
quite strict. But it was an all girls school,
Mhm.
and our motto was to serve.
Right.
Yeah, that was it, to serve. And they used to instill in you this sense of you know you should be proud to wear the uniform. You're an ambassador of the school. I took that really seriously. um and you should always strive to fulfill your potential. Did I have problems at school? Yeah, of course I did. Everybody had problems at school, but nothing where I was on the brink of expulsion, nothing like that. But yeah, I enjoyed school, and then I got involved in a lot of activities. You know, I was captain of the netball team. At one point, I was deputy head girl.
Mhm.
You know, I was a senior prefect. So I got involved in lots of things that enhanced my experience at school, and I worked hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna own it. I worked hard. The minute homework was issued, I was on it like white on rice. I did my homework, not like my brother, whistling along like he's got no care in the world, and then lastminute.com, he's there trying to find his exercise book. I was like, you stay there, you stay there. So, I was a kind of different student, as it were. So I did enjoy school on the whole. And yeah, that was so I had a good experience. And I always feel sorry for people who didn't have a good experience.
Yeah,
Because it's such a shame. But yes.
yeah. So it sounds, again, it sounds like the environment which you were in was an environment which was nurturing you, which, as you said, you had it wasn't all smelling of roses. There was its
No.
times,
And
but
don't forget, I was really tall for my age. I was
okay.
tall for my age, so people just didn't mess, even though they didn't know that I was a scaredy cat on the inside. The fact that my persona gave this aura that don't mess with her, I was happy with that because that kind of protected me from it. If only they knew. All my friends knew. Said, "You're such a baby." I was like, "Yeah, I know, but don't tell anybody." In case... So so I had all of that going for me. I'm just teasing.
That's interesting. And I know you are tall. You are tall.
Yes, I am. I've always been quite tall for my as for my age. So yeah.
Yeah. And so all of those, what kind of aspirations were given to you whilst you were at school? Did they say to you, go to university? Did they say to you, what was their advice, or what role models did they provide for you when you were going through the system?
That's a really good question. I guess from if I go back to when we were growing up, I think if you speak to my siblings, we all have this sense of justice in
Hmm.
our own way.
Hmm.
And I think I said to you that I saw this ad for a paper boy
Hmm.
roll in a shop. And I was like, but wait, what do you mean paper boy? And the boy was in big capital letters, like no one should even bother applying. And I was like, ah. So I went to the shop and I said, what's with the paper boy? Why can't I do it? And they said, oh, we want a paper boy. And I was like, no, listen, I can deliver papers just as good as anyone. Give me a week. If I mess up, fine. But if I don't, you got to keep me on. And so this sense of, I'm not having that, that's not right, was always in us. So in school, they tell you that you could go to university. They'll say to you, you can stay on and do your A levels. They encourage you to do that. They encourage you to fulfill your potential. And in any they had lots of schemes where you can get involved, like you could work with the fire brigade, and the fire brigade had a program where they had quizzes and you can get involved and stuff like that. Do you remember the program Blockbusters?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go on Blockbusters,
Yeah.
and I asked the school if I could go and represent the school with my friend, and they said, yeah, go for it. So they were really encouraging, but my friend let me down at the last minute, and I said, I ain't gonna be by myself. So I didn't go. So I missed my little chance of fame on Blockbusters. But it's those type of things that they would encourage you to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you were willing, because
Yeah.
my hand was up for everything.
Yeah.
I just got involved. Duke of Edinburgh, yes.
Yeah.
Fire Brigade, yes. Sports, yes. So anything that I felt that I could be good at, I just had to go.
So,
And yeah.
there's two things which have come from that. One, there's this get up and go attitude, right? I can do this, one. And then there's the second part which you mentioned, which was about the encouragement, not the encouragement, the sense of fairness, sense of justice. Where do you think those, I think I've got an idea of where they've stemmed from, but where do you think that those two traits came from?
My mum.
Hmm. That's
My
what I
mum.
thought you were gonna say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, she was always, I mean, she was always, not always, that's wrong, but whenever there was something wrong, my mum would be the one to speak up. You can't do that.
Hmm.
You can't treat her like that. So
Hmm.
there was always this sense of it's not right.
Hmm.
I'm gonna support you. And I think because we witnessed that growing up,
Hmm.
and we've all had that sense thing. No, that's not right. So there's always this thing, and then my mum would always say, if you don't go for something, you never know.
Hmm.
You'll never know. And it's interesting because I kind of lost it on the way as I got a bit more older. I lost it. I lost this sense of just going for it, because things happen to us and it knocks your confidence. And so yeah, but growing up, I've always had that, I said to my mum I wanted to go to Russia with the school, and she said, well, if you want to go to Russia, I can't afford to send you. So if you can get the money, then you can go. So, my girl went to find jobs. I went to find some work, and it couldn't affect my school studies either.
Yeah.
So I found jobs and I saved my money and I went to Russia. So it's that kind of,
So,
once I get the green light, I'm gone.
so there, that was your mum not standing in your way. She's giving you her blessings, but saying you're going to have to make this happen for yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
So it was that get up and go. You can do it. If you can dream it, you can be it.
yeah. The only thing where I felt disappointed
Hmm.
was when I said to my mum I wanted to go to university,
Hmm.
and she was like, "Go to university." So my mum shouldn't go to university. None of the family had gone. So I would have been the first person in the family to go to university.
Yeah.
So it's still an alien concept, and
Hmm.
as far as she was concerned, you finish school, get a job.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the trajectory. You
Hmm.
finish school, get a good job, start paying your way.
Yeah.
So because that's what she knew.
Yeah.
And so that was the only spanner in the works, education wise, that I didn't go to uni when I wanted to go to uni to do
Yeah.
what I wanted to do. And I wanted to do theology.
Right.
And my mum was like, "You want to become a nun? You spend too much time in that convent school." And of course, I didn't want to become a nun for the love of God. No. But I was interested in it, something. But no, she wanted me to leave and get a job. So
Okay.
I
So
did.
what type of job did she want you to get?
A good job, a
Okay.
good office job,
All right.
9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Yes, off at weekends. That's what she considered to be a good job. And of course, then I didn't get that kind of job. I worked in a shop.
Hmm.
Are you working in a shop? So so you can hear there was a lot of influence over my mum from my
Yeah.
mum in my life for the first
Yeah.
few years of her. And then I got a job in the civil service. Whoa, that the first job I got in the civil service, I turned it down because I just said I'm not working for pittance.
Yeah.
And then I got another job, and I found out the money just wasn't that much better. So
Right.
I took that one. Yeah, but
So
I did everything I could to mess up the interview, but they still gave me the job.
so what drew you to the civil service? How did you get in?
I just saw a job an advert.
Mhm.
My mum said, "Look at look in the paper." And back in the day, that's when the jobs used to be in the paper. You used
Yeah.
to circle them, and so yeah, I saw this job, and I thought, come on then. So I filled in the application form, and I got an interview. And again, as part of your preparation, you do a recce. You don't wake up the morning of the interview to go and find out where the place is. You go down the day before,
Yeah.
so survey the land, find out the best way to get there. My mum sent my brother and sister with me to go and do the surveillance of the land to find out how best to get there. So I knew I was going the next day. Um, and until this day, I still do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I went for the job, and it was just admin job, basic, first rung of the ladder,
Mhm.
and it's to work for the Department for Transport.
Right.
And they were asking me at the time about that's when the Channel Tunnel was just an idea. They was talking about, and I was like, nah, that's not gonna fly. And they were like, why not? I said, the trains here don't run on time, and you wanna run a train from here to another country? We need to get our house in order
Yeah.
before we start, dabbling into any other country and all this kind of stuff. And you could see they were laughing, but I was being quite serious. And and I thought, well, I haven't got that job. And then they said I could start in a couple of months' time. I thought, oh God. But as far as my mum's concerned, I was made chief executive. That's how she was getting on. Government. Yeah, so
That's brilliant. So it was the Department of Transport. You were there, and you were telling them that the Eurotunnel is not going to work. It's not going to
that's
work.
it.
It's not
Because I
going to
said,
fly.
if your service here is so poor
Yeah.
in your own country, how
Yeah.
you expect to have a good service between this country and another country?
Yeah.
Your track record is appalling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
that was my my bullshit attitude at 19 years old. Oh
It
goodness.
worked though.
It
It
clearly,
worked.
it clearly did.
It worked. So from there, because then at 19 years old, you're working in the civil service,
Yeah.
right? Um, how then did you progress up the civil service? And did you have that sense of you could be who you wanted to be in that environment?
So, two questions there, isn't it? So let me
Yeah.
go with the last bit first.
Hmm.
Yes, I was very much who I was.
Hmm.
Imagine I walked into a room, and in this room were three middle-aged white guys.
Hmm.
Yeah, and in their, I was just this alien person to them because I was this much younger black woman
Yeah.
whose references did not chime with them at all.
Hmm.
So I thought, well, we ain't gonna be like friends and such. So I just tell me what needs to be done. And
Hmm.
they would go through this stuff, and I was like, is that it? I never said is that it to them. I was like, oh, is that the job? So because I found the job quite easy, I was just doing the stuff, and then I would find other things to do.
Hmm.
And I'll be asking so many questions like, what is this? And why do you do it this way? This way is so long. What you don't know how to use that? Why have we got it then? And so I was always asking these questions to the point they said, look, just give this girl a project to get her off our case because she is just too much, you know. And so they gave me some projects, and once I knew what I was doing, I just got into it, and within 4 months, I got temporary promotion.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
because I saw my salary and I was like, nah, I can't survive on this. This is no, no wonder you got me doing some foolish job because this is what you want to pay me. Um, so within 4 months, I got temporary promoted, and then I was on that grade for 2 years.
Right.
So I was just doing stuff, and they could see that I was competent, so they would give me more and more stuff to do. Um, so while that was going on in the workplace, I met my boyfriend, who then became my husband.
Hmm.
And my husband was saying to me, "So how comes you didn't finish your A levels, and how comes you didn't go to university?" And I said, "Oh, I explained what happened and the job and stuff." And he was like, "Nah, nah, you need to fulfill your potential. You need to go and stretch your brain because the job you're doing is not stretching you too tough. So you need to go and stretch your brain and find out what you want to do."
Yeah.
So I went to university part time, and I
Yeah.
did a postgraduate in business and finance, and I really enjoyed it. I,
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I said, what else could I do? And they said, you could do a postgraduate in human resources. I said, oh, did I know what I was doing? Did I even know what human resources was? But it sounded good. So I thought, okay, let me do that. And then I realized that if I passed that, it would give me um, membership of the CIPD, the
Hmm.
Chartered Institute for Personnel Development, and and that would be a professional recognized qualification.
Yeah.
And so once I got that, I told my line manager that I wanted to work in HR,
Yeah.
and then a role came up. So I left Department for Transport and went to work for an agency as a assistant HR manager.
Yeah.
So and then while I was doing that, I finished my postgrad, and they said to me, if you can spend one more year studying, you can get your masters. And I said, I can get a master's in a year? Really? What do I have to do? They said you have to do classes for 6 months and then do your dissertation for the rest of the 6 months. I said, is it? Oh, that was an easy win for me. I said, yeah, I'm doing that. I am doing that. So I finished my master's, and I was then promoted to HR manager as well. So
Wow.
things were running simultaneously for me. So
So,
yeah.
so it's interesting when you spoke about what you were thinking about when you were kind of like 16 and or 17 and thinking about going to university or making the suggestion and saying going into theology, kind of like it's kind of like a business administration, having gone into the workplace and seen it's quite a different stance, but you had found something else which you were interested in.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I think I wanted to do theology at the time because I loved RE. I loved
Right.
learning about, how the Bible's put together and all that. So I thought I really want to do more of this.
Yeah.
So that's probably what it was. But you're right. When I found out about, because I didn't even know what a HNC or HND was, or I
Mhm.
didn't know about any of that stuff.
Mhm.
You just hear about first degree, don't you? You
Yeah.
know, first class, second, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I when I discovered that, when my husband looked at the prospectus and we saw this, and I said, okay. And yeah, that thing led on to another, which led on
Yeah.
to something else.
Yeah.
And it changed my whole career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing which I thought was really beautiful, and I'm going to mention it because I think it's really worth mentioning, is the fact that it was your partner, right, who then became your husband, who looked on you and said, "You've got so much more to offer than what you're." He was saying, "Take the shackles off,
Yeah.
it's
He
those
was.
chains. There's
Yeah.
there's more to you than don't be cocooned in that little box, you
Yeah.
know."
Yeah. He
And
pushed me. He challenged,
yeah,
and then I remember when I got my master's, he goes, That's it now. That's it." Because he wanted a wife to be academically on the same level. But now I had the master's, I was higher than him. And then I was like, I think I'll go into a PhD. He was like, No, no, no.
steady on now.
It was like, boy, don't go too far, But I still might do a PhD. I've got, I think there's still something in me to do something like that. Nothing to do with the fact that I like the idea of being Dr. Inko-Tariah at all, but I do think there's something in me around a PhD that I could do. So I'll have to see what that looks like. Yeah.
I think you'd make an excellent PhD student. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. I'd love it.
Right. But so from there, now
Yeah.
you've got promoted to kind of like HR manager and things like that. And as I was saying to you the other day, when I think about HR, um, how did you how did you get involved with staff networks?
Hmm. Great question. So it was while I was a HR manager. So when I say HR, I'm talking about we did everything. We
Mhm.
did recruitment, we did discipline, absence, or every maternity contracts. We did everything. We were a proper, HR functioning team, and I had about 7 people working to me, and we dealt with a region of 1,000 staff.
Wow.
Yeah, so we delivered a lot.
Mhm.
The agency had offices all over the country.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
some in some cities and some in more rural areas.
Mhm.
And obviously, the more rural you're in, the more less likely you're going to find people who are from an ethnic minority background. So there had been some problems arising.
Mhm.
The D&I person, the diversity and inclusion manager, approached me and asked and said to me, Cherron, we've heard of this concept called staff networks, and we'd like to set one up for the ethnic minority staff in the agency. And I was like, okay, and we really like you to chair it. I thought, oh, okay. I said, well, I'll need to find out a bit more, but who's going to be doing the HR stuff while I do this role? And they're like, well, you. I was like, sorry, what do you mean me? You just said you wanted me to chair this staff network, so you want me to chair the network and do my HR role? And do I get any more money for it? No. Do you get any time off? No. I was like, put the phone down. You must think I'm a fool. You want me to take on additional work and not give me no time off or pay?
Mhm.
Bye.
Mhm.
Um, she approached me again and said, Cherron, look, I know it's a big ask, but we really think you'd be the best person. Da 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 da. It would be so beneficial. Think of all the people. So she started playing to the heart. Think of all the people you're going to be helping. And then I said, okay, look, I'm going to give it 6 months, right? And then if it's not working, then I'm not doing it. I'll stop it. They said, fine. So then I said to them, well, give me the book then. Give me the manual. Give me the instructions. Oh, there's no. I said, hold on, wait. So you want me to take on another thing and then do? I've got to think of it. I've got to do all the heavy lifting. So they said, yeah. So I was like, this is a nonsense. Anyway, we got a group of people together, and I was very upfront. I said, listen, I'm giving this 6 months, right? And in that time, I want us to be able to show that we know what we're doing and we know how we want to make a difference. Um, and if we can't do that, then I'm shutting it down. Done.
Mhm.
And they all agreed. And people started sharing their story, Wayne. they started sharing stories of some of the incidences they had experienced from staff and from customers. And I was like, oh my goodness. And for the first time, they felt heard and believed. Do you understand? That's when my eyes began to open about, oh, this is not what I thought this was at all. This is something very special that we need to protect at all costs. So 2 years later, remember, I was only going to give it 6 months.
6 months.
But 2 years later, we had created this solid network where staff could come and be supported, but also where we could create a vehicle to send those strong messages to senior managers about the lack of support when people are facing discrimination based on race. We created a guide, about a language guide, and we were really raw. You know, here's what you can't say. And I don't mean to offend anyone, but we said you can't say nigger. This is the connotation. You can't say pikey for gypsies. This is what it means. You can't say paki when you mean Asians. We were very raw, and because that was the language that we had encountered. And so I handed over the reins to somebody else, and I moved on. But after that experience, I learned a lot, and I still got involved in networks throughout my career, whether it was a network of networks or supporting a network. I still got involved, but for a long time I was quite dormant in my activity because I was just busy. Are you going to ask me what led to the book?
That's exactly the question. You know my questions, man, and I haven't even sent them over to you. So how did you go from there to then constructing the book? And for those of you who, the book is called The Incredible Power of Staff Networks. That's it. Stop right there. That's exactly it. Right. Beautiful book.
So I trained to be a coach. My line manager said to me, Cherron, I think they're looking to train coaches for staff. I think you'd be good at this. So while I was training to be a coach, and it was a proper, intense 9-month program that you do, I discovered that my future was no longer in the civil service.
Okay.
Yeah, because when you go through coaching, you do a lot of self-reflection, you ask some difficult questions. And don't forget, I was in love with my employer, but they weren't really in love with me. Let's put it that way. So I knew my future wasn't in the service. I didn't know how I was going to leave or whatever, but I just knew. So I was kind of preparing myself for that. And then the department was going through a series of cuts. Yeah, they were looking to shave off a large proportion of staff. And I knew that a lot of the staff that were going to be hit the hardest were from Black and Asian minority ethnic backgrounds because they were in the more junior grades. And I'm thinking to myself, excuse me, how can I support these people? How can I support people in a way that, they don't have to lose their job, they can put their best foot forward? So I thought, let me see if there's a network, or if the network is still running, because I had come off the mailing list because they were just mailing around foolishness, in my opinion. And so I went to a network meeting, and I kept an open mind, and I thought, okay, let me hear. And I sat down in this room, and if anyone's got the book, you'll see in the first few pages, I talk about my frustration sitting in this meeting, listening to them talking about how they're going to organize this party and organize everything was around food. And I'm like, but people are about to lose their jobs. What are you going to do about that? Do you know what I mean? There was no acknowledgement of this, and I was getting really angry, and I walked out because I knew if I stayed in there I might blast some people, and that's not constructive. So I went out, and I just kept thinking about what could I do, how could I approach this, because I didn't want to just rock up to the chair and say, listen, you need to sort your life out, because I didn't want to do it that way. It's not helpful. So I wrote her a letter. I wrote her a little a memo, like you do in the civil service, and I set out what my concerns were, but equally I set out how I could support them. So it wasn't just you need to do this, which a lot of people do, but I set out how I could support them. And let's just say they welcomed the ideas, but they didn't welcome the messenger.
Oh.
I was accused of trying to take over. I was accused of staging a coup. I was like, you ain't some war torn country in somewhere that I'm a military dictator and I'm staging a coup. Come on, this is a government department in London. Um, but yeah, I was accused of all sorts of things, and I thought I could either leave it or take it. Do
Mhm.
you understand? And that
Mhm.
sense of justice started to rise up again.
Mhm.
And so I got involved, and um, eventually I got a good team of people around me. Um, one of the co-chairs stood down because they didn't like the direction the network was going, i.e., it was becoming active.
Mhm.
Um, and so they asked me to be co-chair, which I was. Had a bit of a strange relationship with the other chair
Mhm.
because I was taking things in a slightly different direction, and that was tough.
Yeah.
But eventually, the team that I had around me could see the value we were bringing. And
Mhm.
more importantly, the members started to see the value we were bringing.
Mhm.
I remember at the beginning, one member said to me, "Oh, Cherron, the network won't become too posh, will it?" What does that mean? So I said to her, what does that mean? It won't become too posh. Yeah. I said, do you mean we won't become too professional? Is that what you mean? Do you think you're going to be left behind if we're being acting in a professional way? And she goes, well, yeah. And I said, well, let me tell you something, darling. You're working in a government department, so you are a professional.
Yeah.
Therefore, you deserve a professional network.
Yeah.
And if you can't see that, I don't know what I can say to you.
Yeah.
But you see, they were so locked in this mindset of moan, moan, moan,
Mhm.
that when I was challenging them, they found it difficult. And I'm like, how many years are you going to stay in this grade because your line manager said you need to stay there for a couple more years?
Mhm.
Let's break out of that box. Come
Yeah.
on, let's
Yeah.
break out of it. So that was hard.
Mhm.
It was hard persuading, trying to change the mindset of people who had this locked mindset. Well, my line manager said I'm not ready for promotion. Who's your line manager to tell you that?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is your career.
Mhm.
They are in a position simply because of a hierarchical structure in an organization, but
Mhm.
they don't have control over your career. Let's be clear. And that constant message, push, 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 took us a while to get through, but eventually we did. We saw people that were apathetic bystanders become the most active ambassadors. Yeah, because their mindset had started to change.
Yeah.
You know, we wanted them, so that's what led to the book, because I said to myself when I eventually left the service, we did the network, I handed over, and I left the service on the 30th of April 2012. That
Mhm.
chuckling that you heard that time around 4 o'clock was me. Um, and then I thought, well, what am I going to do? And then my circle said to me, why don't you go and write that book that you was looking for when you were a network chair?
Mhm.
And that's what started it off. I said I had to capture this experience,
Yeah.
so that others don't have to go through all the stuff I went through, or
Yeah.
if they do, they know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I spoke to different people and put this book together, and
Uh,
yeah,
well, I am a promoter of books, and I have got the book and I have read the book, and I agree it is an excellent book for anyone who's involved in staff networks. I would say it's the go-to. Going back to kind of like a biblical reference. It's the
it's the
Bible for
Bible.
it's the Bible for staff networks, because
Thank you.
it does outline, if you're wanting to be. What I really loved about the book, and but also from hearing it from you, is about the impact, the power of the staff network. Are you harnessing it or are you dampening it? That's the question that you have to ask yourself.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's interesting. I wish I could say to people, say, "Oh, how did you write your book?" And listen, I had a love-hate relationship writing this book, because imposter syndrome kicks in, right?
Mhm.
Imposter syndrome kicks in and says, "So who tell you can be writing book? Yeah, who told you that? Who in the family's written a book? Nobody. So why are you fastening up yourself?" So I had all this dialogue, and I stopped writing the book because I was on it. I was in the British Library. I was doing my research. I was in there so often that I knew the security guards' names. That's how
Yeah.
often I was in there. And then I just stopped because I just doubted myself.
Mhm.
And then a good friend at the time phoned me up and said, Cherron, have you seen what's out? I was like, what? What? Somebody's written a book about staff networks. I tell you, Wayne, my heart sank. My heart sank to the pit of my stomach. I said, tell me you're lying. She goes, yeah, I'm lying. Just write the damn book. And she put the phone down. So, I prayed and I was like, God, you got to help me with this book. And I'll tell you this, on the 2nd of January, 2014, at 2:30 in the morning, sorry, 4th of January, 2014, 2:30 in the morning, I just jumped up in the middle of bed and I opened up my laptop and started writing. And then I found a publisher, and by February 2015, the book was done. It was launched. Had a big launch. It was great,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I thought, okay, that's it now, done. Redundancy money running out. Book done. Time to go
Yeah.
and get a job.
Yeah.
And then people started calling me and said, "Oh, we've just come across this book, The Incredible Power of Staff Networks. Can you come and talk to us about it?" And I was like, "No, just read the book and apply, and you'll be all right. You don't need me there, you know." And this kept happening. So I told my publisher, people keep asking me to come and tell them about the book, but I've told them to just read it and apply it. He's like, "You said what? What did you say?" He was like, "No, you've got to go and talk to them." And I was like, "Why?" Looking back on it now, it's so ridiculous. But at my time, I was just like, if I've taken the time to read, to put the book together, why don't you just follow it? But I realized that people just wanted to hear about me, my experience, and so on. So you learn, right? You evolve. Yeah. Um, and I just want to go back to something I said before about the get up and go in me. And I said that I lost it a bit, didn't
Yeah.
I?
Yeah.
I lost it because throughout my time in the service, different jobs and so on, we all know about microaggressions, but at the time I didn't know the term,
Yeah.
but I certainly felt the impact.
Right.
And these microaggressions that you go through, they chip away at your confidence.
Yeah.
So you start doubting yourself. You start questioning your contribution, whether it's valid or good enough. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I coasted at a particular grade for a long time because I just didn't feel I could go higher.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, and
And
my good friend Rob said that he was in the service for X amount of years, but he was black for only a certain amount, because it's only when I started to think, right, I want to go higher now, that's when I realized that my race was a factor.
yeah.
The first 10 years, vroom,
Hmm.
I was speeding up the ladder, but then I hit a barrier, and no matter what I did, I could not overcome this barrier.
Hmm.
And that's when you realize that this environment is not conducive for me to bloom.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I
Absolutely.
meant. But getting involved in the staff network, that started to come
That,
back.
that gave you that push because
It
it
gave me
was
that push.
it gave from what you're saying, it's because you were actually hearing that actually it's not just me who's in this position. It's not just me who's experiencing these microaggressions,
Yeah,
these I'm not even going to call them unconscious biases. It was conscious biases against you, yeah, which people were perpetrating because of the hierarchical structure which you were working within.
yeah, absolutely. And I think if I look back at my time as a chair of a network, um, the message wasn't things are perfect. The
Hmm.
message wasn't things aren't going to go wrong. That wasn't the message. The
Hmm.
message was, you know, even in the times of adversity, you can still thrive.
Hmm.
We can still thrive as long as we remember why we come together and how to support each other. That was the message,
Hmm.
because I want us to be able to thrive regardless of what's happening around us.
Absolutely.
And that was the message we were pushing. We were pushing, and we had Baroness Lawrence, we got Tim Campbell,
Yeah.
we got Levi Roots in. We had also, and people like, whoa, these people got some. So
Yeah.
we, from being at the bottom of the pile, to rising to the top. And we didn't have no D&I support, no budget, none of these things that networks have today. We didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
And so the question was, without those things, are you still going to do it?
Yeah.
Are you still going to do it? And the answer was yes, I'm still
Yeah.
going to do it. You see
But,
what I mean? Yeah.
but you say that, you're still going to do it. And it comes back to the point that you made at the very start, or kind of like at the very start of this section, where you said when the woman called you up and said, "Hi, Cherron, we've got a little position that we would like you to do, and it's going to be on top of on top of my own work life, and you're not gonna give me no extra time." Things, right? Which, as someone who's involved with staff networks, I appreciate and I totally understand the amount of additional work goes into making it functional.
Yeah.
And so you've almost come full, kind of like your thinking had come full circle because you saw, and I'm going to come back to it, the power of the staff network, what it could do for people's lives.
And what it did for me.
Yeah.
For me, I learned a lot. I learned that my experiences as deputy head girl and captain of the netball team, and fighting for all of those things came to the fore.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And somebody said to me that they said to me that a senior manager told me that I was political with a small p.
Okay.
So when someone says that to you and you're a civil servant, you're not quite sure how to take that.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to him, "What does that mean? What does it mean? You know what I mean? Break it down so I can understand."
Mm-hmm.
And what he was saying was that I learned to master the chess game. Do you understand? So I never just came into a meeting talking about race. It
Mm-hmm.
was never just about race and
Mm-hmm.
the poor treatment or the disparity of ethnic minorities. It's about, if we can get this right, it will help you achieve your objectives.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always thinking of the long game. Do you know what I mean? And I did. So he was saying that I learned how to be strategic and this and that and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm not going to pretend that I don't hear the surprise in your voice. Do you understand? Because it was often things like, "Oh, you're not strategic enough. You don't have the analytical skills. You're
Mm-hmm.
not, you don't have a good comprehension of the organization." These were the reasons why they didn't promote us.
Mm-hmm.
Those are often the reasons why we didn't get the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to prove that we could do all of those things and more. It's just that you're blinkered. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
was what I wanted to prove. You say, "Well, analytical, here's my report analyzing some data and
Yeah.
the impact it could have on the organization." I'm not strategic enough, really. My man just told me that I learned how to master the chess game. So it was proving a point
Yeah.
and helping people to walk a bit prouder,
Yeah.
you know. And one thing we did, which I was so proud of, is at the time it was BAME. I know we don't use that
Yeah.
acronym anymore,
Yeah.
but at the time it was.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, let's change it.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't stand for Black, Asian. Let's change it for bold, astute, multitasker, engaging. So we created these posters of different ethnic minority images, and those letters stood for these really positive things. And we put them all over the building. Wayne, it nearly caused a riot. My phone was hot. Cherron, I've just seen a poster of a Black woman, and the word says this, this, and this. And I said, "Then what's your problem? Is that the network?" "Yeah." Phone gone, put the phone down. So that's what it was like for that morning. And then a senior manager put in a complaint to the communications team. I've just seen some posters and all the no. Now let me be clear. Where the posters were, those slots were empty for a month.
Yeah.
Nobody used those slots. Nobody wanted to even know the slots were there. But the minute we put posters in there, everybody now either had something to say, they were complaining, they wanted to know how they could use posters. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
somebody said, "Who told you you could do that?" That was what I was asked. "Who told you you could do that?" I said, "First of all, do you like the posters? Are you not inspired by them? Well, yes, of course, they're great, but I'm just saying that we think if everyone should have a chance to use them. Everyone does have a chance to use them. I
Yeah,
just showed you how to use them, you know. And we had agreed with the comms team that they were going to stay up there for a good 6 months. Yeah,
yeah.
that's how long they were staying up there for.
So you,
Uh, so
so
that's what we did.
you'd already spoken to the comms team about this.
Oh, listen, I do my homework. I said to you that I'll go to do the recce
This,
to know where I'm going. That's
yeah,
I
yeah,
do my homework. I'll make
yeah,
sure I
yeah.
check the rules. That's what we can do. So I said to comms, those things, what are they there for? Oh, well, you can use them. Can you put that in writing just so I got a record of it? Is that all right? So but oh, here's the email. Yeah, head of comms. He did. Okay.
Bye.
Little things like that, where you almost have to give yourself permission.
Yeah,
We gave ourselves permission to
yeah,
do stuff,
yeah,
because people were worried that, we're going to get in trouble. So I said, you're not going to get in any trouble. You're going to be fine. It's just a poster. We're not breaking any laws or any rules. You'll be fine. But
wow,
because they were not used to that,
yeah,
you see what I mean? And then we turned the posters into a calendar
yeah,
and we gave them out to all the members.
wow,
See what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
we were
yeah,
just, and once you see something like that, you come up with all these kind of other ideas, and then you realize we've been holding ourselves back
yeah,
because we believe that our manager may say this
yeah,
or our managers may say that.
mm-hmm,
But even if they do, you're like, well, do you not like the poster?
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
So anyway, that was I kind of found my sense.
yeah,
I rediscovered, what my purpose was at that time.
yeah,
And then the book has given me a platform to speak to others, to
yeah,
encourage other networks,
yeah,
and to help and to challenge them as well.
mm-hmm,
Because I know it's not easy. I do know that.
mm-hmm,
But you are in control. Well, hopefully, most of us are in control of our calendars,
yeah,
unless you're like a nurse or the police officer where you've got different things. But most of the time, you can decide what you're going to spend your time on.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so
No, that's fantastic. So it's opened up, it's kicked open doors. That's what I'm going to say. It's not just open doors, it's kicked open doors
the
because
book.
the book and also the actions which inspired you to writing the book. Because without those things, you might still be just saying, okay, you know what, boss has said that another year for me to before I'm gonna have,
I'll still be there. I'll
that's
still
what I
be
mean.
there. And this is why, I'm a great believer that anytime you go through something bad,
Mm-hmm.
the experience is not a wasted one.
That's right.
At some point in the future, you will understand why you went through that, or
Mm-hmm.
that same experience will be used to help you propel to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Had I known at the time, I was going through this stuff. And don't get me wrong, there are many times when I would get so frustrated, I'd have to find a room and say, "Why am I doing this? These
Mm-hmm.
people are so stupid. They don't even like me. They don't appreciate what I'm doing."
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be having these, and I'd get my circle together and I'll
Yeah,
just say, "I need a rant."
yeah,
So I'm really upset. And just being able to get that things off your chest, and then you realize, I'm a woman of faith, so I believe in, I'm a Christian. And I remember I was like, God, why did you tell me to do this? Why did you tell me, of all the people in the world, you chose me to do this thing, to deal with these people? And he said to me, read this, thing, and calm down. And so I'd read it and I was like, oh God, you know um
yeah.
and then I'd get myself together, and then somebody would come along and say, "Oh, Cherron, thank you so much for what the network did. I listened, I listened to you, and I listened to what the network said, and I got the promotion." How can you give
Fantastic.
up after someone says that to you? And I was like, okay, that's great. And I'll be looking at God saying, yeah, I see you. You know, um, and so little things like that kept me spurred on.
Yeah,
And I would just say to the team, just do what you can to the best of your ability. Do you understand?
yeah.
Just do what you can. And so if you're involved in a network, don't be taking on too many things.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it. Just do one or two things and do those two things well. But make sure you tell everybody what you did and why you did it and what happened as a result. That's me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
it.
Cherron, every week, I come to this point where I have to say, you know what, our time is up. And I still have a couple more questions, right? So I want you to indulge me just for another couple minutes, if that's all right. All right. And I'm going to ask you, because I know that there's so much more that you've done, because I've been involved with one of the initiatives which you're doing at the moment. But I'm going to ask my two final questions. And those two final questions are, what advice would you have given to your younger self? That's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question is, what would your younger self looking at you now say? Wow, are you that Cherron?
So to my younger self, I would say, your height is a blessing, your complexion is a blessing, and you're beautiful as you are, because I just did not see myself as, I saw everyone else as, I wish I could look like her, and I would question, why am I so dark and why am I so tall and why do I have such big feet? I was always just like down on my appearance,
Mhm.
and I would use my personality to try and overcome that. But I would just tell myself, like, girl, you are beautiful as you are. You
That's
are
right.
talented. There's a reason why you've got this. You get these leadership appointments. There's a reason why people like to hang around with you. Just never lose any of that.
Yeah,
Understand?
yeah,
And just walk proud with all the melanin and the mahogany skin that you have and the height that you have. Just walk proud
that's
and walk,
right.
So that's what I would say to my younger self. Um, you know, um, I'd also say don't go out with Gary. Wait for Charles. Sorry, because Gary was an idiot. But um, but I would I think if I was in school as my younger self and I saw me walking into a room, I'd be like, wow, she looks like me. Do you understand?
Mhm.
I think I don't know what I would say to my older self. Actually, it's funny. It's like I don't even know. I don't know.
That's all.
Um, I think I would have to say, wait. So you wrote a book, and what you go around the world talking, and you're married? Because I used to think that I would never get nobody would want to marry me.
Oh,
But I was the first out of my friends to get married, and that was interesting. But anyway, yeah. So I'd be like, and you're married? Oh, yes. Like I think I'd be proud. I think I'd probably want to give her a hug.
and
That's so pathetic. But do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know what do people say to that in response, because
It's
it's a
it
really
it
good question.
varies. It varies. It really does vary. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
So,
really does.
yeah,
But you
I don't
know,
know what I would say. I'd have to think about that. Really, you know, that's a great question for me to ask.
that's
That's another series you could do, isn't it?
what
What would your
I'm gonna
younger
I'm
self
gonna
say to
come
you now?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's I know that you're doing some great work. I've been involved with some of it, and I have learned so much from you, from your book, but from you and the way that actually you command when you come into a room. Seriously, you command the room. We know that you're in the room, right? And that's a beautiful thing, right? A black woman in a leadership position who is from whenever I've been in the room with you, you seem to be so self-assured in what you're doing. So even if there was any nerves, you don't ever display that. And I think that that's a
Okay.
that's
Thank
that's a
you.
beautiful thing. Yeah. That's a beautiful thing that you know who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Um um and yeah, I just think I know that we're going to continue to work together in the future. And I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to learning from you and helping each other to achieve more great things for staff networks and beyond that.
And beyond, yeah. And thank you, Wayne. I said this to you the other day. You've got a great style of interviewing. If you ever want to stop to be an academic, I'd certainly encourage you to get involved in radio or media or something. Great, easy to talk to, easy to talk to. So
Thank you.
you know, that's a skill that you've got, and you know, you should exploit that to the max. Yeah, lots of
Thank you.
other projects in the mix, and the reason why I've got that is because I continue to give myself permission. So
And
if there's one message you can take away from today, give yourself the green light.
give
Yeah,
yourself the green light.
give
Absolutely.
yourself the green light. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and walk tall.
100%.
You know, so yeah,
100%.
yeah.
100%.
Thank you.
I'm going to just let everyone know what's going to be happening next week, but say another big thank you, Cherron, for being our guest today. It was absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Absolute delight.
So next week, continuing our theme about legacy of Windrush and everything like that. Next week, we're going to have Shakira Martin, who was, I call her a British student politician, and she's a former president of the National Union of Students. And it's a very interesting story that she has to tell about how she got there. So another powerful young Black woman we're going to be interviewing next week. And a couple of weeks' time, we do have this Meet the Author, um, Simon Hudson, who's going to talk to us about his journey into writing his two books, which are The History Through the Black Experience. Great books as well. And if you have missed any of the other interviews that we've done, then please go to our YouTube channel, which is tinyurl.com/belonging-IAO. And you'll be able to hear this and many other interviews that we've done looking at the Black, Asian and minority ethnic experiences, their lived experiences. Gonna skip that one. But here we are. And Cherron, your picture is going to be added to this very soon. It's a picture of all of the interviews that we've done, or not all of them, the first 100. And it's been a pleasure to be able to have spoken to all of these individuals, because it gives us an insight of what it does mean to belong as individuals, but as a collective, and what we can do to make other people feel as though they belong as well. So until next week, have a good weekend. It's going to be a wonderful weekend for me and my family. And I know that we're going to be celebrating a very special person's very special birthday. So we want to just say another thank you for coming in and sharing this time with us today. So take care, and I will see you again very soon. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.